27 years of combat left him with hands that shake and words that sometimes won't come. The pizza place refused his order 3 times. "We don't serve drunks," they said. They had no idea they just insulted the Medal of Honor recipient who saved their town. If you believe respect should never depend on how clearly someone speaks, hit like, type honor in the comments, and subscribe because this story proves some wounds are invisible, but heroes never are. Master Sergeant Robert Hayes lived at 412 Maple Street in a house that looked like every other house on the block. White siding, blue shutters, a mailbox that tilted slightly to the left, but inside the walls told a different story. 27 years of service medals lined the hallway like silent sentries, Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, campaign ribbons from places most people couldn't pronounce. And in the center, mounted behind glass that never quite stayed clean, hung the Medal of Honor, the highest decoration a soldier can receive for valor above and beyond the call of duty. Robert earned it on a Tuesday in Afghanistan, 2009. An IED had flipped their convoy. 6 men trapped inside burning vehicles, enemy fire coming from 3 directions. He went back 4 times into the flames, 4 times under fire, until every man was out. The blast that finally got him, the one that left shrapnel in his brain and tremors in his hands, came as he was carrying the last soldier to safety. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. The tremors were permanent. So was the speech difficulty. Combat-related traumatic brain injury, they called it. Words got tangled somewhere between his thoughts and his mouth. Sentences came out broken, stuttered, incomplete. But Robert never complained. He'd seen too many friends who didn't make it home to feel sorry for himself. It was Thursday, 6:47 p.m. Robert sat at his kitchen table, the same table where he'd eaten breakfast every morning for the past 8 years since retiring. His hand shook slightly as he counted out $15 in crumpled bills and loose change. Enough for a large pepperoni pizza from Tony's, the place down on 5th Street that had been there since 1985. He'd been putting off this call for 3 days. Grocery shopping had become harder lately. The crowds, the noise, the way people stared when his words came out wrong. Pizza delivery seemed easier, simpler, less room for judgment. Robert picked up the phone, a landline with oversized buttons that his neurologist had recommended. His finger trembled slightly as he dialed. The phone rang twice.
Tony's Pizza, this is Madison. What can I get started for you?
Robert took a breath. Sometimes the words came easier if he focused. "Hi, I'd like to order a large pep..." His tongue caught. The word wouldn't come. Pepperoni pizza. Silence on the other end. Then,
"Sir, are you okay?"
"Yes, I have a speech condition from military service. Could I please..."
"Look, if you're drunk, you need to call back when you're sober."
The line went dead. Robert stared at the phone for a long moment. His hands were shaking worse now. Not from the injury, but from something else. Humiliation. He'd faced enemy fire, insurgents, roadside bombs, but a teenage pizza clerk had just reduced him to silence with 8 words. He tried again. Different approach this time. Slower, more deliberate.
"Tony's Pizza."
"Hi, I need to order delivery to 412 Maple Street.
"What do you want?"
"1 large pepperoni pizza, please."
"Are you the same guy who just called? You sound weird, man."
Robert's jaw tightened. "I have a brain injury from combat. Could you please just..."
"Dude, stop messing around. We're busy."
Click. Dial tone. The third time, Robert tried writing out his order first. Practice the words. Make them clear. He dialed with steady fingers, his speech as controlled as he could manage.
"Tony's, what do you want?"
1 large pepperoni pizza. Delivery to 412 Maple Street. Phone number is...
"Is this the drunk guy again?"
"I am not drunk. I am a disabled veteran trying to order..."
"We don't serve drunks. Stop calling."
The line went dead for the third time. Robert sat in his kitchen, staring at the phone. Outside, the sun was setting behind Mrs. Chen's apple tree. Normal people were having normal dinners with their normal families, and he couldn't even order a pizza. For 27 years, he'd served his country. He'd jumped out of planes, run through machine gun fire, carried wounded soldiers across minefields. He'd been honored by presidents, saluted by generals, awarded medals for bravery under fire. But a pizza shop thought he was drunk. What Robert didn't know was that Mrs. Chen had been watching from her kitchen window. She'd seen him counting money on his table. She'd heard the frustration in his voice through the thin walls. And Mrs. Chen remembered 2009, when the whole town had gathered to welcome home their local hero. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd saved 16 years ago, a number her son had given her before his last deployment. "Call this if you ever need anything, Mom. Anything at all." The phone rang once. General Chen speaking. "Tommy, it's Mom. I need you to do something for me." 45 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up outside Tony's Pizza. Not speeding, not dramatic, just purposeful. The kind of car that meant business was about to be conducted. General Thomas Chen stepped out. 42 years old, 3 stars on his shoulder, a chest full of ribbons that told the story of a man who'd followed his father's footsteps into service. He was still in uniform, having just left a Pentagon briefing about veteran affairs. He'd driven straight from Washington when his mother called. The bell above Tony's door chimed softly as the general entered. The dinner rush was in full swing. Teenagers clustered around arcade games, families squeezed into red vinyl booths. The smell of garlic and melted cheese thickened the air. Behind the counter, Madison was taking an order, her voice loud and casual. "Yeah, we can do extra cheese, but it'll be like 20 minutes. General Chen waited. He didn't interrupt, didn't demand attention. He simply stood at the back of the line like any other customer, hands clasped behind his back, posture perfect. When Madison finally looked up, her expression changed. The uniform commanded attention even when the man wearing it stayed silent. Can I help you?" "I'd like to speak with the manager, please." "He's in the back. Is there a problem?" "There might be." Tony Marcelli emerged from the kitchen 2 minutes later, wiping flour-covered hands on his apron. He was a good man, second-generation Italian-American, ran an honest business, employed local kids, sponsored the high school baseball team. He'd never served in the military, but he respected those who had. "General, what can I do for you?" "I understand one of your employees refused service to a disabled veteran tonight, 3 times. Tony's face went pale. His eyes immediately found Madison, who was suddenly very interested in cleaning the cash register. What happened exactly?" General Chen's voice remained calm, professional. "A man with combat-related traumatic brain injury tried to order a pizza. Your employee called him drunk and hung up on him, repeatedly." The restaurant had gone quiet. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the teenagers had looked up from their games. Tony stepped closer to Madison. "Is this true?" Madison's voice was small now, defensive. "There was this guy who kept calling. He sounded weird, like he was drunk or something. I told him we don't serve." "You told a wounded veteran that you don't serve drunks?" General Chen interrupted, his voice still level, but carrying the weight of absolute authority. "A man who earned the Medal of Honor saving soldiers in Afghanistan." The silence was complete now. Someone's drink glass touched their table too hard, the sound sharp in the quiet. Tony's hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from shame. "General, I am so sorry. This is not how we—" The man's name is Master Sergeant Robert Hayes. He lives at 412 Maple Street. He's been trying to order a pizza for 3 hours. General Chen reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. With careful deliberation, he pulled up a photo and turned the screen toward Tony. It showed a younger Robert Hayes in dress uniform, the Medal of Honor around his neck, shaking hands with the President of the United States. This man saved 6 soldiers' lives. He took shrapnel to the brain doing it. The tremors in his hands and the difficulty with speech are the price he paid for keeping other people's sons alive. Madison had gone completely white. The magnitude of what she'd done was sinking in. Tony looked at his employee, then back at the general. "What can we do to make this right?" "You can start by personally delivering his order, with an apology." Within 10 minutes, Tony's entire evening crew was assembled in the kitchen, not because they were ordered to, but because word had spread. The general stood in the doorway watching as Tony personally stretched the dough as the cook carefully layered on sauce and cheese, as Madison, her eyes red with tears, helped box the finished pizza with hands that shook worse than Robert's. They didn't charge for the pizza. They added breadsticks, a 2-liter of soda, and a handwritten note from Tony. "With our deepest respect and apologies, your service will never be forgotten." The delivery was made by Tony himself, with General Chen following in his sedan. When Robert opened the door at 8:23 p.m., he found Tony standing there with the pizza box, hat literally in hand. "Mr. Hayes, I am Tony Marcelli, the owner of Tony's Pizza. I came to personally apologize for the inexcusable treatment you received tonight." Robert's hands trembled slightly as he accepted the box. Behind Tony, he could see the general in uniform standing by a government car. I just wanted pizza," Robert said quietly. "Yes, sir, and you should have been treated with the respect you've earned. What my employee did was wrong, and it won't happen again." General Chen stepped forward. "Sergeant Hayes, I'm General Chen. My mother lives next door. She told me what happened." Robert's eyes focused on the general's ribbons, the insignia, the bearing of a fellow soldier. Something passed between them, the recognition that exists between men who've seen the same darkness. "Thank you for coming," Robert said simply. "Thank you for your service and your sacrifice." They stood there for a moment, 2 soldiers on a quiet street, understanding each other without need for words. The next day, something had changed at Tony's Pizza. Madison arrived for her shift to find a new poster by the register. It showed the Medal of Honor, with text underneath. "This restaurant proudly serves all veterans. If you see this medal, you're looking at extraordinary courage." Below that, Tony had added, "Speech difficulties, tremors, or other invisible wounds are signs of service, not reasons for judgment." Madison had spent the night researching traumatic brain injury, reading about soldiers who'd sacrificed pieces of themselves for others. She'd written her own note, which she asked Tony to deliver to Robert. "Mr. Hayes, I am the employee who was rude to you. I didn't understand what your speech difficulty meant. I didn't realize you were a hero. I'm 19 years old, and I made a terrible mistake. I'm starting volunteer work at the VA hospital to learn more about veterans' needs. I hope someday I can earn your forgiveness." Robert called the pizza shop that evening. Tony answered personally. "Tony's Pizza, this is Tony." "Hi, this is Robert Hayes. I'd like to order a large pepperoni pizza." "Yes, sir, Mr. Hayes. It would be my honor to make that for you. No charge. I insist on paying. I just want to be treated like any other customer." "You are, sir. You absolutely are." From that day forward, Robert's standing order was ready every Thursday at 7 p.m. The staff knew his voice, knew his story, knew to be patient when words came slowly. Madison personally delivered his order each week, using the opportunity to share what she'd learned volunteering at the VA. The relationship grew. Robert began stopping by the restaurant occasionally, not just for pickup, but to sit and eat. Tony would join him sometimes, listening to stories about places he'd never been, wars he'd never fought, sacrifices he'd never had to make. The other customers began to recognize him too. Word had spread through the small town about what had happened, about who Robert really was. People stopped to shake his hand, to thank him for his service, to ask about his experiences. But more importantly, they stopped to listen when his words came slowly, stopped to be patient when his hands shook, stopped to see the man instead of the disability. 6 months later, Tony's Pizza hosted its first annual Veterans Appreciation Night. Free meals for all veterans, a display of local military history, and a special table in the corner reserved for Medal of Honor recipients. Robert sat at that table, surrounded by other veterans, some young, some old, all understanding the invisible wounds that service can leave. Madison served them personally, having learned to recognize the signs of PTSD, the challenges of TBI, the quiet dignity of men and women who'd given pieces of themselves for others. General Chen came when he could, bringing other officers, sharing stories, building bridges between the community and those who'd served it. The transformation was complete when a young soldier, recently returned from deployment, called Tony's with a speech impediment from a roadside bomb. The voice was halting, uncertain, embarrassed. Madison answered. She listened patiently as he struggled with his order, recognized the signs, understood the sacrifice. "Thank you for your service," she said when he finished. "Your pizza will be ready in 20 minutes, and the delivery is on us. We're honored to serve you." After she hung up, she turned to Tony. "Another hero needs dinner." Tony nodded, already reaching for the dough. "Then let's make sure he gets the best we have." Outside, the sun was setting behind Mrs. Chen's apple tree. Inside Tony's Pizza, the normal sounds of a busy restaurant continued, but something had changed in that place, something important. Respect had been learned, dignity had been restored, and a community had remembered that heroes don't always look like what we expect, don't always speak clearly, don't always have steady hands. Sometimes they just want to order pizza like everyone else, and sometimes that's exactly when they need our respect the most.
This is going to be very excited out. Tonight, maybe some stew into warm morning.
Robert Hayes still lives at 412 Maple Street. His hands still shake, his words still come slowly sometimes. But every Thursday at 7 p.m., his phone rings. "Mr. Hayes, this is Tony. Your usual order is ready. Madison's on her way over." "Thank you, Tony." "No, sir. Thank you." If you believe every veteran deserves dignity, regardless of visible or invisible wounds, hit like, type respect in the comments, and subscribe to Veterans and Hero Stories, because some battles continue long after the war ends, and some victories happen one pizza order at a time.